Yep, 100% the same for me. It's like, okay, yep, now I understand. Back to the top.
Because I just don't process in like the instructions and the rules without actually having context as to what's going on. Otherwise, it's just saying words at me.
So what you're saying is you're a visual learner.
Yes, which is ironic. Very, very ironic. I've got very little time to learn things left. But fortunately, I don't need to learn anything to host episode 79 of the Halcyon Frequency podcast. I'm blind, and I'm hosting this week's episode on a Sunday. And I'm joined by Arch Plays Stuff. How are you doing today, Arch?
I am exhausted, but I'm well. I've just been to the markets and gotten my fruit and veggies. Mostly veggies, because fruit's for people with, money. But yes, I'm well.
Glad to hear that you are well. And speaking of people who I hope are also well, how are you doing today, Bloody Drongo?
I'm good. I've had a pretty hectic little weekend, but I'm feeling more excited and inspired from it, more so than I feel tired. At least at the moment. But I'm doing good.
Hopefully good kind of hectic and not bad kind of hectic.
Oh yeah. Definitely the good type of hectic, for sure.
That's kind of a funny thing, because this is something that I've had to deal with. All of my weekends are hectic. Now I actually have weekends. So, like, for context, I've just started work that is full-time work with a commute into the city to do. And it is so much different. It is like a lot of work in getting in there. My entire days during the week are taken, like, seriously, just, it blows me away. I'm spending about an hour and 50 minutes on the commute every day.
Oof.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hit that weekend and I finally, like, I've got to do stuff and all of this, and it's like, oh yeah. So my weekends have gotten incredibly hectic as well, but not the good kind.
I've had a...
Just
yeah.
I have.
But I mean, congratulations on the new job. That's the...
Oh yeah.
The key takeaway.
Yeah,
right?
That's the main takeaway there, is congratulations on, like, existing in the realm of employment once again.
Yes.
I've had a extraordinarily hectic week in, like, the kind of the most bad sense. Like, everything has just kind of gone from bad to worse in, like, ways that I, like, don't even want to talk about on this podcast to a degree. So it's been a lot of all over the place, but I get to pet sit for 8 days starting tonight, which is both positive and negative. It's positive in that I get to have a fluffy white dog and a senile ancient history cat fossil wandering around my apartment. The bad news is Puppy has, the dog, she has panic attacks if you leave her alone in a place that she doesn't recognize. So I really don't get to leave my apartment for 8 days, which I'm not looking forward to. So all my, like, normal stress relievers right now are just, like, gone, because all I can do is sit in my apartment. I can't go to the garden, can't go do anything. I've got people, like, lined up to, like, take care of my stuff outside of the apartment, but, like, man, not looking forward to the next 8 days.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that is a tricky one.
Yep. So that's my week, basically.
So basically, you can't leave the apartment for the 8 days, and I'm stuck having to leave it.
I will
for 5 days a week.
I will leave it for one day because I have a doctor's appointment booked, and hopefully the dog doesn't destroy anything important. So
fingers crossed. Yeah.
I will only be gone for about 90 minutes, so fingers crossed.
Oh man, but an anxious dog can get a lot done in 90 minutes.
Fortunately, she doesn't really destroy things. She just kind of barks and howls and cries.
Yeah, okay.
Which
gotcha.
is okay. Aside from that, I'm not allowed to have pets in my unit because it's not on my lease right now. So I've informed both my neighbors on either side of me that I'm going to be dog sitting it. If you hear barking on Monday, please don't tell anybody. That's all I have to say. It's okay. She'll be fine. So we'll get by. She also has, like, panic attacks when she sees other dogs, so I also can't sit outside like I normally do every evening. Anyway,
Yeah.
Wow.
dogs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah. We have two very high maintenance dogs as well. We've got Lucy, who's an old geriatric. She's about 15 now, and she's been going through a few issues lately with she started to develop a bit of arthritis in her back legs, and we've had to get some anti-inflammatory medication to try and address that. And that has been in turn upsetting her stomach, so we've had to try and redo her diet, and it's been just a whole thing. And we've just recently started up, instead of doing anti-inflammatory medication, we've started to move on to a more expensive monthly injection to help manage that. And so but yeah, it's still a time. And then we've got our younger dog, Betty, who's like 3 years old, but about 8 months ago, almost overnight, she lost complete vision in both of her eyes. And so now she's, just completely blind. And she's super hyperactive. She's a border collie, so she wants to play all the time. But she's also quite neurotic and has to be around people. And now that she's, lost her vision, she needs to be around people to be supervised. And even though she's super, super smart and can navigate spaces really well, occasionally she still does get overwhelmed or disoriented and doesn't really know where she is anymore. And especially if there's a lot of background noise, because she relies a lot now on her hearing to actually get around. If there's like background noise, like if there's a rain, or if like there's a fan on or an air conditioner or something like that, she gets completely overwhelmed and a bit disoriented. And like sometimes she'll just do weird stuff. Like a couple of weeks ago, she like jumped behind a shelf and got herself wedged, because I think she just forgot where she was and just got herself into troubles. But yeah, I mean, I love those two dogs to death, but they are definitely a lot of work.
My parents' cat, who I'm also going to be pet sitting, is 22 now. And
Wow.
He can't eat much food, but he needs to eat a lot of food. So if you give him more than a tablespoon of raw food, which he gets fed, he will throw it up. If you give him a tablespoon like every hour and a half, 2 hours, he's totally fine. So,
oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, and he will take breaks occasionally between eats. Like he usually sleeps for about 6 hours sometime at night. But he starts asking politely for food. By that I mean meowing really loudly, because he's part Siamese, Russian blue. He will like jump up onto my bed, because I live in a one-room apartment, right? So I have no space. 4:30 in the morning, meow, meow, and he knows where your ear is, so he'll just like meow right into your ear. He'll just like sit right on top of you and meow into your ear till you get up and feed him. And there's nothing I can do about this, because like I live in a one-room apartment, and my dad wakes up at 4. So my dad feeds him at 4:30. So my dad's a super early bird.
He's got the routine.
So it's not even like, and like every single time this happens, chat makes fun of me. It's like, have you been up since 5 again? Yep, the cat woke me up. It's like, well, he's got you well trained. It's like, no, my dad trained him. Like, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
This isn't even the cat's fault. This is my dad's fault. My dad just wakes up at 4 to go to work. So I think he sleeps until 5:30 on weekends. But yeah, no, it's
the things we do for animals, right?
Yep. It's also my parents can go on a vacation for a week and a bit.
Bless.
Yeah. But
see, I'm just sitting here like thinking I am pet free at the moment, and like part of me would like to change that. I haven't had the opportunity, but I'm also thinking like, do I really want to change that right now?
For me, it's like there's no way in hell I could get a dog unless it was tiny, because like this apartment's too goddamn small for anything bigger than like a Shih Tzu and or like a miniature something or another. I don't particularly like tiny dogs, and also I wouldn't be able to go anywhere unless it was super okay with being left alone for long periods of time, because we're not allowed to bring pets on public transit here unless they're in a carrying case. So
see, Drongo, you'll get this one. I'm really getting those give that man a new vibes.
Give that man a new?
So it was an ad for a beer. The guy's got his dog and he wants to go in with his mates to a beer, and he's like, that says no dogs allowed. So he walks in with this like little Maltese or Jack Russell or something, and he's got the sunnies on, and the bartender's like, sorry mate, no dogs allowed. And he just looks down and he's like, what are they giving me? And then they're like, oh, give that man a new. It was an ad campaign around basically, oh yeah, people who think outside the box deserve Tui's new. But yeah, like it was just that real you know, he's like, oh, seeing eye dogs are normally German shepherds or labs. And the guy's just like, what are they giving me?
Huh. I feel like I would need to see it.
I mean, you know, I don't even remember how long ago that ad aired. Your reference game is out of this world, because I was initially just like confused and like frantically searching in my brain for that phrase. I'm like, I've got nothing at the moment, until you started explaining, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that is a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's really old. I've actually found it on YouTube, so I'm just gonna post that in the chat there,
and probably in the show notes so people can watch it.
Yeah, it's just like a 15-year-old video now. Not
a sponsor, by the way. Other beer brands are available.
That's unfortunate. We should get a beer sponsor. Make this into a beer cast.
We should. I completely agree.
Something else that I should mention is Drongo. Since we're both on a podcast again, what do you think about your boy returning to F1?
Oh, dude, it's really good, really good, really exciting to see Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid. But I'm so scared for him, because if he doesn't perform in the AlphaTauri, then his career's surely got to be done at that point. But I mean, so far so good. Like last night, did pretty well. Out-qualified his teammate and qualified ahead of cars that he probably shouldn't have, like Stroll and Russell and stuff like
Stroll's
that.
So, bad.
I mean,
Stroll's not...
Are you allowed to say that as a Canadian?
Literally,
okay,
the stands
right. I just wanted to check.
It was like everybody's like cheers for every single driver as they go by. Like I was on the Lance Stroll, what's it called? The Lance Stroll grandstand. Like that was the name of like the seats that I was sitting in, because like he has a grandstand at that track named after him.
Does he? I didn't know.
It used to be called the Nick Latifi grandstand, but anyway. So
they should have kept that. The GOAT.
Apparently Nick Latifi is going to engineering school. Anyway.
Is he? Oh,
like,
good on him.
Like he's going to some school in the UK to like try and stay in racing, but from an engineering perspective, which is kind of neat. Awesome. Anyway, yeah, no, I was in that grandstand, and when he went by in the little sports car, there was a bunch of people booing. So like, no.
Oh my god.
People do not like Lance.
That's so interesting.
He's a pay driver. People don't like pay drivers, which is like weird because people like Perez, and he's very much a pay driver.
What's a pay driver?
Somebody with a lot of money or brings a lot of sponsorship money. So Lance Stroll's dad is a billionaire.
Yeah, and basically he bought the team so to guarantee him a race seat. Although I did see that actually Stroll or his consortium had sold a pretty significant amount of shares to one of their Chinese investor groups that also had a smaller share previously. I think they've moved up from like a 5% share to a 20% share. Citation needed, but I don't know, maybe that could be like the writing on the wall, because like if I mean, Stroll hasn't been performing, that's the reality of it. And if there's pressure for him to lose his seat, then maybe his dad's like, okay, well, let's start selling out of the business then, which would be interesting to see what that does to the rest of the team.
It would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny because like I bought an Aston Martin hat when I was out there, and the people kept asking me, they're like, so you're a Stroll fan, I guess. And it's like, It's like every single Aston Martin person there was just like either really liked Force India or really liked Racing Point or really liked Alonso.
Yep.
Like, I didn't talk to a single person the entire weekend I was at the Grand Prix who liked Stroll.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, I definitely don't have as negative feeling about Stroll as I think some people do. Like, he has performed at times, but he's just not as good. Like, he's definitely not on a Fernando Alonso level, which, I mean, is understandable, right?
There are
but, like,
way better drivers in way worse cars that should have his seat. And I think that's kind of how people feel.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. I mean, he does have his moments, like, you know, he's actually usually a decent wet weather driver, although I don't think we've seen that in the last couple of seasons. Like, it doesn't seem like in the current regulation era we've seen him actually excel in wet weather like he used to in the old regs.
Lance Stroll is a perfectly mid pay driver, but people don't like perfectly mid pay drivers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's hard to defend him for sure.
But as a perfectly mid-pay streamer, I'm going to take this opportunity to say it's time for us to go talk about some video games. So we'll be right back after this short break.
Absolutely 10 out of 10 segue.
And we're back with episode 79 of the Halcyon Frequency podcast. And we're here to talk about the games that we've been playing this week. So, Arch, you've been playing some Escapes of Runes and idling things. So what have you been up to?
Yes. So it's a funny story and a bit of a word of warning to some people as well. I was looking for a new game on my phone, and I had been told previously about a game, Melvor Idle, and how it was pretty popular. I think I'd seen people playing it on Steam, so I thought, yeah, I will buy it on my iPhone. So I bought it, started playing it. It went well. It was quite enjoyable. I actually really did enjoy the loop of it. A little bit difficult on like the mobile with the UI and all that, but it was good. It's numbers go up, you know, but there's lots to do, lots of skills and lots of ways to sort of do it all. So it was quite interesting in that. And then I was like, oh yeah, they've also got the client on Steam. I wonder if, because I've bought the game on Apple, whether I get like a Steam key or anything. No. However, if you buy the game on Steam, you can get the paid version on Apple or Android. It does not work the other way around though. So in order to play it on my PC, I had to purchase it again. A fun little game of numbers go up and like plenty of skills, a lot of various things. It is, I don't think it's even RuneScape inspired or a RuneScape knockoff. I think it literally is RuneScape now. Because it's actually published by JX. So they took it and they started publishing it. Yeah, it's part of the Friends of Gelinor bundle. And you can also get like RuneScape premium membership in RuneScape, like the subscription in bundles with it as well. So it actually is tied more to RuneScape now than it used to be. And yeah, it's always fun. I've still got it running. I mean, as we speak right now, I'm currently smithing rune swords in order to raise my smithing skill, because I don't have a lot of time to play games anymore, so I can set this in the morning and just bugger off for the day and come back and see what's happened. So I'm definitely enjoying the idle game aspect of it.
Jagex has put out some really random things over the past few years, haven't they?
They've certainly been a little bit more bold in terms of publishing things. I'm just looking at their publishing page on Steam, and they did Earthlock, which was a really fun old school vibed RPG. And then they also did Ekone Island and Earthlock Adventure, which is sort of like a farming adventure game. It says it's like a very big, gather resources and farm the land, but it did have a very progressive storyline that you've got to work through, which was quite interesting. I played that a few months ago, and yeah, they got quite a few coming out. I'm just looking at what they've got. They've got Earthlock 2 on the way. They also have This Means Warp.
Yeah, that's the it's FTL, but it's actually a Cook Serve Delicious game, I think.
Yeah.
What?
Co-op space survival game. So basically, in order to win the fights and stuff.
Oh, I have seen this.
Yeah, this came out last month or 2 months ago now.
So you playing Melvor Idle here, I assume, like, eventually ended with you just playing RuneScape proper? Because you've also got RuneScape 3 on here.
Yes, so I've been looking at it and it being like, I've been enjoying the Idle one. And I was looking through Twitch's Prime Gaming deals. And there was one which had membership for RuneScape. And I was like, you know what? I've always struggled with RuneScape. And I think that's because I've tried old school RuneScape, which is definitely more strongly aimed at the people who used to play it rather than brand new players. So I thought, why not jump into RuneScape 3 and give it a try? And so I'm still very early days in that. I think I have, according to this, like a total number of levels of 250, which is, nothing. My combat level is 17. I've been trying to get through tutorials and Googling, how do I raise defense? Or, where am I supposed to start? Because the game is absolutely huge, but it's been entertaining so far.
Well, just like, how do I explain my time with RuneScape? Just remember, RuneScape is actually just a point-and-click idle game. Just requires slightly more precise clicking than clickers.
Yeah.
You do realize I come from Worm Online, right? Like,
that's an idle 100%. Game. You don't even have to click in that, right?
Yeah, you do. You do have to click.
I thought you just logged out.
It is,
and then walked away.
No,
it's like the game.
That's what I do.
You're losing the game if you're thinking about the game.
Oh man!
I just ruined somebody's day.
Yeah, there'll be somebody. Leave it in the comments if you lost the game.
I mean, like, you could very easily probably play Worm Online and RuneScape at the same time, while you're also waiting parked in port.
You can, because
in EVE Online.
You absolutely can, because I have done both, and not only played both games at the same time, played multiple characters in both games at the same time.
I remember, like, at my worst with RuneScape, I was running like 8 virtual machines.
Oh my god.
Playing different characters and then just like running loot. Like I was running a rune running ring by myself before teleporting existed and before the Grand Exchange existed.
Oh man. Wow.
And I never was a member, so I was just a free to play character making air runes.
Wow.
Yeah, see, that's kind of the thing that I notice with a lot of games. If I'm playing a game and I have the urge to spin up an alt to do something at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just dopamine chasing.
This is why I don't play MMOs. Because they do bad things to me.
Yeah.
They make me become that kind of person. And it's like, I just... It
is difficult.
And then
You're holding up a mirror right now, and I don't want to look.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, like, what are we supposed to do here? You got us? Game over?
Well, I'm just sitting with the two most MMO-pilled people in the team, probably. I don't know. Sui's pretty MMO heavy.
Yeah, Sui's MMO heavy, and I know that Kiri and FG both want an MMO to jump into. They've just not found one to hook them, which is fair.
And Bellinaire is like a recovering addict who occasionally relapses for 3 months, and we don't see him.
Yeah, well... Well, he's done ESO on stream
Yeah.
for a while now, so no doubt that they're getting him there.
I'm mostly just talking about the time that he streamed 310 hours in a month because he was just playing Final Fantasy.
310
Like,
hours in a month?
It was like close to
What
300
in the
or
world?
just below 300, or just above 300 hours. It was like 12 to 14 hour streams a daily. This was like peak pandemic though. So like, I guess it kind of makes sense when you think about it in that perspective. But yeah, no, he just like played that whole game, like all of it.
That is ridiculous.
That is next level commitment.
Speaking of ridiculous, and next level commitment, I've been playing Xenonauts 2. So Xenonauts 2 is a remake, reimagining of the first Xenonauts. It's more of that than a sequel. That's what was originally announced and pitched with the Kickstarter, which was like 8 years ago. Or it might have been 7 years ago now. But game had a very tumultuous development through after the Kickstarter. They stopped development a couple times because they kept running out of money. It was one of those situations. Eventually, I think it was like mid 2020, 2021, they announced that they were picked up by Hooded Horse, who relaunched the project because the game had like halted development for like a year and a half or something. Then they were picked up by Hooded Horse, started development up again, and it's released into early access now. Now, it's got kind of a middling response. I think it's currently sitting at mostly positive reviews, on the upper end of mostly positive. And so if you... Okay, did either of you play Xenonauts 1?
No.
Did either of you play like old XCOM?
Once or
yes,
twice.
a little
So
bit.
the original Xenonauts had a really weird development because like it came out of like the original XCOM kind of modding scene, and that's where it got most of its promotion. Was like, hey, we're trying to make a classic XCOM. We're trying to make XCOM, and this was when like there hadn't been a real XCOM game in like probably close to like 20 years almost. Like, man, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it had been in like a solid decade since the last XCOM game, and the last few XCOM games were not great. It had been a really long time, and it was this very small team. They're like, yeah, we're going to try and make an XCOM game. We're going to try and make an XCOM game. And right as they were getting close to the like runway, it was like less than a year out to release. Like it had a little bit of hype behind it. Firaxis announces their XCOM game. So they essentially got completely undercut and lost all of the hype they had going into it because let's actually check the actual original release date for Xenonauts, the first one. It released in June 2014, and XCOM, which is hard to search for because all it pops up is XCOM 2. XCOM Enemy Unknown released, it was 2 years before, but because their like hype cycle was spinning up right around the time XCOM Enemy Unknown came out, I think they lost a lot of potential oomph from their release. And it took them a while to get onto Steam too. I want to say that the game was like initially on sale off Steam, like on their website or something, but they never quite got the whole audience of XCOM. And it also, when the original Xenonauts released, it only had one mission type. Like regardless of what the scenario was, it was just kill or be killed. There was no alternate objectives or anything, so it was pretty light content-wise. It was very moddable, but it was pretty light content-wise and had some weird annoyances. So I think, from my perspective as somebody who played that game, it really feels like they just completely missed the audience. And they got the hardcore, but like aside from that, they missed the audience and like ended up putting out a product that didn't stand up to Firaxis' XCOM in a lot of ways. Even though, in my opinion, Xenonauts was a much more mechanically interesting game with a lot more depth potential, the release product that they put out just didn't stand up to what Firaxis put out. Then Firaxis put out XCOM 2, and they kickstarted their sequel, and kind of the same thing happened again, to a degree. And so it just kind of led to like this kind of comedy of errors, almost of just like, will Xenonauts ever really exist? So now fast forward to 2023, we have Xenonauts 2 out. And what I can say is this. It feels like Xenonauts. So if you played and liked Xenonauts, it's that. Meaning, instead of using the movement point system that Firaxis' XCOM uses, it uses the seconds system. So based on the weight of the gear that the soldier is carrying and the strength of the soldier, and the soldier's behind-the-scenes stats states how far they can move. Different actions take different numbers of seconds based on the strength and the weight of the action that needs to be executed. There is a whole new series of like death clock timers on the overworld that weren't there in the original game. There's kind of a Men in Black equivalent called the Cleaners. I'm just assuming that everybody knows what XCOM is, just kind of talking about this, but they're called the Cleaners. And then in the overworld, while time is ticking up, as days are moving forward, there's other sites that you need to pay attention to that are more human centric. So you're shooting at dudes with guns instead of like aliens with lasers. But it's got all of the XCOM trappings. It's that formula, and that formula works, and it works really, 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 really well. And I find Xenonauts to be a supremely satisfying game to play, even though I think this build and this version that they currently have out has some shortcomings. It has about 60% of the writing in the game, so every now and again you'll get a story bit or a research screen and it's just blank. There's places where art's missing.
Oh dear.
Because it is early access, right? There's places where art's missing. They've said that about 60% of the enemy units are in the game. The enemy AI for a lot of the unit types is placeholders, so they don't have super interesting interactions, and the AI will do some extraordinarily dumb things. But, you'll still have moments where, like, you have like your 5 soldiers all lined up and one guy up on a roof all looking at an area. 2 aliens run out and they both get free shots of opportunity because they see you first, and they get their 2 shots off of opportunity and both of the shots miss wildly, and then all of your soldiers get Overwatch and then they all take their shots and all of them miss, and then one of your soldiers shoots your own soldier, and like stuff like that will happen, and it's still fantastic. Like it's in the sense that it is XCOM, it looks like XCOM, it feels like XCOM, it plays like XCOM. That is great. But I think for a lot of people who really, really want that experience, right now you're probably better served going and playing open XCOM, because you will get that, but you'll also have a finished experience. What's for sale right now as Xenonauts 2, I'm having a blast with. Like, I'm having like just dumb fun with it. I want to play nothing else. Like, when I haven't been streaming, I've just been thinking about Xenonauts 2, going like, yeah, I need to get those clocks going. I need to get a base set up in North America. I gotta get something in like kind of the Asia Sea area, and like I need to move more squads around. I need to build more jets so I can more effectively take out these bigger UFOs that are coming at me now, and like get more sites fighting and all that stuff. Like that part of it is really, really, really good. And the minute-to-minute combat is really, 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 really good. Controlling it feels really, 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 really good. But it crashes a lot. And it's missing content. Fortunately, it saves every turn, so you're going to miss maybe 30 seconds of content if you do crash. So, I don't know. It's really easy to recommend if you're an enthusiast for XCOM and you really want more XCOM and you want a good game that feels like XCOM that looks modern, in a really nice isometric 3D like kind of format. But it's rough in some ways, and the ways where it's rough are pretty glaring. So it's a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, I've been wanting to check this out, and I've been like thinking all week like, oh man, I really need to go out of my way to get a key for that. And then when you were talking before and said it was from Hooded Horse, I was just like, wait, hang on, did they actually send me a key? And then I've just realized, yes, I have got a key, and I have redeemed it. And like they did with me. Yeah, and I redeemed it, but I didn't put it in my folder of games that I've been sent keys for, so I've just forgotten that I actually had it. So it's I'm gonna try it out myself and see how it goes, because I do love the XCOM format. I really do.
See, I think, 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 I also got a key for it, but I have not done anything with it because I'm very new to the XCOM format.
Mhm.
I've not ever played an XCOM game before. And
Oh,
every time
really?
I've watched them,
Wow.
I've been like, it's interesting, but I've always been more drawn to a little bit more of the, say, like the Fire Emblem side of it. Because I feel Fire Emblem has some very similar things in movement, range, damage, and all of that, but slightly different.
I mean, that's like saying chess and checkers are the same game.
No, I mean, they both use a table and, you know, rules and objects.
I mean, if you've just had them both verbally described to you, they'd sound pretty similar, yes.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at, and that's it. Like, I really enjoy Fire Emblem, but I've not dived into any XCOM style game before.
See, XCOM is well, I have 3 really good soldiers, everybody else is wounded, we have to go out, and I'm sending in 5 rookies and 3 veterans. Okay, you land, one of the rookies runs out and immediately just gets, like, gassed by some random alien from halfway across the map, and you go, oh no! Anyways, and then you send out your other soldiers. In Fire Emblem, that person dies, and you go, bah! I lost my waifu! And then you Alt F4 to, like, or hard lock the console so you don't lose them.
Yep. Yeah, that's very similar when it comes to Fire Emblem as well. It's like, oh, I have 1 power unit. Oh my god, I just lost the one that I really like. Yeah, I'm resetting.
Yeah, I mean, well, in XCOM and like in this game too, like you can just save and reload. Like there's nothing stopping you from doing that unless you turn on Iron Man, which I think is a really dumb idea in a early access game that crashes. Anyway, like that's just not a good idea. Like just don't do that. Like if you want to play an Iron Man, just don't reload saves. Like just be an adult. But like when it comes to this game, it's a lot more about mitigating losses, and they're a lot more sandboxy, right? Like Fire Emblem it's a story-based game. Like the XCOM games in like both major eras of XCOM have all been like story-based games, but the story is around your like, okay, I managed to capture an alien by, instead of killing it, I managed to knock it out either with stun grenades or a stun baton or some sort of non-lethal weapon. We brought it home and we interrogated it, and then we get more story, and then like your ability to fend off the alien threat gets better and you get some new tech for it. And that's how story is traditionally kind of delivered in this. The way story in Xenonauts is delivered is before important missions, there will be chatter from the main characters. In the intro, there's chatter from the main characters. And then whenever you unlock a tech or build a new piece of gear, you get a full screen pop-up with a bunch of lore and a descriptor written by the different characters in that character's voice. So there's no voice acting in Xenonauts, but in, let's say, XCOM Enemy Unknown, the Firaxis, XCOM, it's voice acted, right? So there's like... And that's one thing that actually I really miss about the Firaxis games. I don't like them mechanically, so I just kind of don't play them. But they do have this "Welcome back, Commander," and "I'll be seeing you, Command," and like just like these really good voice lines that play every time you tab in and tab out of your base and go into combat, which I really miss from that era of XCOM. That I wish that they could just like do something, even if it's very, very, very simple and like maybe a half dozen different recordings of the line for Xenonauts. I wish they could do something like that, because that is something that I think that Xenonauts is kind of suffering from. Is the first one kind of had this problem as well. The writing in it is pretty funny, but I feel like Xenonauts is kind of lacking in character. And one way that I can like explain that is in XCOM, you can just make your soldiers pink. This doesn't have that level of customization. Like, yeah, you can put better armor on your guys and it shows up, but it's just like slightly more sci-fi looking armor. It's not like I can't like select them and be like, I'm going to put a tattoo of the word fuck on your face and like make your guy blue. Like, you know, like there isn't that level of customization. Like I think the most recent XCOM playthrough I was watching somebody stream, like his entire squad was Vocaloids. So it was just like a bunch of anime ladies running around with shotguns, blowing up aliens, and like, you know, like that kind. And with Xenonauts, you have to wait for the mods for that kind of things, right? And like the last Xenonauts was super moddable and had great mod support, and there was all kinds of stuff like that. But Xenonauts 2 obviously has none of that. But one thing I will say is the developers have been super quick about patching it. I mean, I'm looking at this right now. They've actually like patched it twice today. And it's a
Oh, wow.
it's a weekend right now, or at least they posted 2 update notices in the last 11 hours, or one an hour ago and then 11 hours ago. So they are cranking out on this thing. Yeah, no, they posted twice yesterday. There was a patch on Wednesday. There's a patch on Tuesday. So like they're working on this thing. So I would almost say wait a little bit if you want to play Xenonauts 2, but at the same time, like if you're chomping at the bit for something, there's a lot there. Like it's a 30-hour campaign right now, which is
Okay.
which is also
Sounds like a good.
in my opinion, is better than the 200 hours that Long War becomes. Please don't shoot me. Go on, Arch.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna hate. I just really like the XCOM format, whatever form it takes, because I've played so many different XCOM-esque type games now at this point that I'm just like, I'm here for it, man. Like I'm looking forward to checking out. Got Xenonauts 2 downloading at the moment, so
What I think's gonna ends up happening for me at Xenonauts 2 is I'm gonna finish Xenonauts 2 and then immediately go reinstall OpenXCOM, because I installed it over like 2 weeks ago and messed around with it a little bit, so I had like a direct comparison in my brain between that and Xenonauts. Played a little bit of that, not enough to really talk about it, but played a little bit of that. I'm probably going to finish Xenonauts and then stream some XCOM. It's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
heck yeah. Can't complain about that.
But I've been talking a lot, so Drongo, pick a game from your list and talk about it.
Yeah, so I have been a little bit behind the curve, and this past week I finally decided to try Against the Storm. It's been heavily recommended to me by so many people, and I had a really good time with it. Unsurprisingly, considering it comes extremely highly recommended. It's in a genre that I love, in the city builder, survival-esque sort of area, and it has a lot of replayability from what I've been able to discern so far from having toyed around with it a little bit. And yeah, I'm just having a good time with it. I haven't played a huge amount yet, but it is definitely a game where I can already see the number one, the quality. Like, it feels a very, very polished for what it is, and I can also see the appeal and how the gameplay loop really will be very, very satisfying and enjoyable.
Speaking of hooded horse joints, also a
yeah,
horse game.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Hooded Horse do put out a lot of different games, and a lot of those games are games that directly are ones that I play and are interested in. So
I tend to.
yeah, no complaints from me.
I also have Against the Storm. I can't remember when they sent me key for it. It's just been sitting there. I'm waiting for it to hit 1.0. That's when I'll dive into that.
Fair.
Like I kind of like pick and choose with games where it's like, okay, this one I'll wait for 1.0. This one I'll just play it when it releases, and this is the one that I'll wait for 1.0, I think.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. I mean, there's so many different games that come out, and I think sometimes, we're all so pressed as creators to, we gotta be strategic in what games we pick up early and what ones we just okay, well, I'll just look at that later on. And I mean, yeah, Against the Storm was one that I was just like, I'm interested, but I'm just gonna play it when I feel like I have the opportunity, and there's nothing else that kind of fits in there that I want to play more. And yeah, this past week was the first time where I've been like, oh, you know what? I think it's time. I think it's time to play it. And I'm very glad I did. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to going back and playing some more.
Yeah, I played it a while ago, and I did really enjoy it too. I'm keen on waiting for it to come out on 1.0, and then I'll probably dive back into it, because there is just so much to do in it.
Yeah. That is true. There is a lot to it. No doubt about it.
Skimming through Hooded Horse's releases here and reminding myself that I really want to play Falling Frontier. I don't know if that game's going to be any good, but it just looks so cool. I want to play that.
I'm curious to see how Manor Lords goes when it comes out.
Yeah.
Just based off of how seemingly like popular that has been in its lead up and development.
That game gifs really well. It looks really good in like 8-second clips recorded in engine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that this is just kind of becoming like the hooded horse. Let's talk about their upcoming games cast. But like, I played that demo that they released. I really wish they didn't release that demo.
Okay. Because I didn't play it, so I'm completely oblivious to what the reality of it was.
That demo was an alpha. Straight up mechanics didn't work. Like there was points where like things wouldn't work and then you'd restart the game and they would work. There was like,
okay.
So like I would say that demo very much dampened my expectations for that game. What I played was like a city builder that was somewhere between Banished, but trying to be more like a Frostpunk, but with the goals and scope of something like Anno. But also it's like it has total war combat somehow. So I don't know. Like it seems like a lot, and it was kind of using what was the name of that Stronghold game? Stronghold Warlords, I think. Was it Warlords?
That rings a bell. Yeah.
Stronghold Warlords. I can't type. It's War something. Yes, Warlords, which is $8 right now. Has like this overmap system where like you are defending and attacking different regions on a bigger map while also playing a kind of not great Stronghold game. This game has like a similar thing to that where like you zoom out and you can see this larger map and there's different regions and there's other AI-driven groups that are running in these different regions, and I guess the goal is to take over the region. But I don't know. None of that stuff worked in the demo, but it was all present in the demo, and all the buttons were there. They just did nothing. So I wish they didn't release that demo.
Yeah, fair enough.
It is pretty looking, though.
I guess to use that as a jumping off point as well, to talk about demos, I can also talk about another game that I played, which was Lost in the Open, which I got the opportunity to check out their demo version for the game. It's a very short demo. It's like 30 minutes long.
Right, yep.
It's a game that is very much like turn-based combat, almost like in the sort of vein of games like Battle Brothers and stuff like that. And they're hoping to release, as I understand, about this time next year.
Yeah, they're on Kickstarter right now.
Fair way off in the future. Correct, yeah. So just a disclaimer, I was sponsored to check out the demo, but I enjoyed it. Like, there's definitely some rough edges on it, like from a UI perspective as well, especially for me. But like from a mechanical perspective and a gameplay loop, it feels really solid. It has like a progression, a story progression, and it has a similar sort of style to progressing through the game world to games like Slay the Spire, where you choose between different rooms or different pathways to have different encounters, and then it's up to you to kind of navigate and choose what you do with those encounters, and you want to try and build up as good of a party as you can as you get and have to fight progressively stronger and stronger enemies. And it's quite brutal, and I think that is not just a balancing issue, but it does seem as though that is like a deliberate choice, that they've made the game quite difficult. But this is from Black Voyage Games, and they're the developer and publisher for this game at the moment, and it's their first title. But so far so good. Like, they've put together a pretty solid demo, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some more, because it does feel like a really solid foundation. Interesting.
Yeah, no, I seem to recall getting some email about this and going, I don't want to play more demos, so I kind of ignored it. But it's neat that it's good to hear that you had a good time with it, and I wish them well on their Kickstarter.
Yeah, 100%.
So I could talk about Space Haven a little bit. I checked back in with Space Haven, which is another early access game. It's kind of like The Sims in space. They claim to be heavily inspired by RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress, but there's very little RimWorld in there, and there's also very little Dwarf Fortress in there. It's just a colony builder in space. A pretty chill one at that. Okay. I've been playing, although admittedly I was playing on the normal difficulty, and there's like 5 above that. So I'm sure if you turn it up to the hardest difficulty, it's brutally difficult. But I was just playing on the normal difficulty, and it's super chill. The combat's pretty low maintenance, which I kind of don't like. I wish that there was something to the combat. Like, it very much looks like that the combat's going to be almost more XCOM-y, but it's very just like it plays out on a timer, and what happens, and you have almost no control over it. So kind of don't like the combat. And it also doesn't have like enough interest going on with the combat that like it's fun to watch either. It's just kind of there. What's interesting with the game is it's a colony builder, right? So you're building spaceships and you're jumping and you're flying from place to place. But what's fun about it is there's a bunch of other factions that are also flying around, and they also have spaceships. And their spaceships are existing space within the map, just like your spaceship. So you could warp in and be like mining asteroids and then get a notification that somebody else is warping in. It's a pirate ship. They warp in. They try and board you. You seal the airlocks and open your fire with your cannons, blow a hole in their side of the ship, vent the oxygen. They all die, and then you fly over there and repair their ship, and now you have 2 spaceships, which is pretty cool. So, like, it has some neat things going for it, and I think there is reason to play it. But I think maybe the most notable thing is the last time I played this was back in 2020 when it released into early access, like right on the eve of the pandemic was when it released into early access. So I haven't touched it in 3 years. Largely what I noticed different from when I first played it till now is it runs better, things feel smoother, and things make more sense. They've actually removed some mechanics and or streamlined them to a point where they're a lot less tedious. Like the power system's been completely changed. It used to have this weird like cables system where you had to like attach cables on a certain submenu, which is just gone from what I can tell. They've added in a lot more personality traits and stuff to the dudes, i.e. RimWorld. People tantrum and break things, i.e. RimWorld, grumble. And it's in a good spot right now. I can pretty safely say that like if you pick up Space Haven right about now, you'll have a good time with it. There is entertainment to be had there, and it's probably pretty bloody difficult on the harder difficulties, and it's fun and chill on the easy difficulties, and it's fun when your ship catches fire.
Oh, yeah, cool. I mean, it definitely looks like something that's up my alley from that perspective. Like, and I also really like the art style that you've used.
It looks really good, yeah.
It's very, very pretty, and it has a very like it has its own personality, which is nice.
The music is pretty good, but there's nowhere near enough of it. Like it's got this very good like dreamy space music, which is pretty great, but like very quickly you'll realize that I've heard this song 4 times. But like just the shipbuilding part of it is like, and just like one of the most memorable moments I had in this game was back in the initial early access launch, and a neutral trading vessel flew in, and I realized they don't have any guns on their ship. I'm just going to open fire. So I start shooting at them, disable their ship. I'm like, I'm going to go board you now. So I take 4 out of 6 of my people, and I board their ship. And as I'm boarding their ship, they're repairing their engines, and they jump off into hyperspace with half my crew on them. So I just instantly lost 4 people. So I don't know where they went. That was just it. So then I had to run my ship with 2 people, which I couldn't do because it required more people than 2 people to run it. So I basically had to sit there until another ship showed up that I could blow up and take some people from. So it's a neat little game. I recommend Space Haven.
Nice.
Okay.
I'll definitely have that on the radar.
It's space-based DF9, but not garbage. And you can make cool-looking spaceships. I'm looking at this. Homeseek, I think, is the one that we have left. So, Drongo, you want to talk to me about Homeseek, some more town-building stuff?
Yeah, so this is actually another game that I was sponsored to check out. And it kind of fits in the survival game genre. If you're thinking of games that it might be akin to, I would say probably close to things like Frostpunk, that are, instead of, you know, the cold though, you're in the desert and you need water. So it's a post-apocalyptic base building survival game that really emphasizes making, you know, hard decisions, grey decisions, and has a very like narrative-based plot. Like, it has different chapters, and you're going through and basically within each map trying to build up your colony to complete that segment of the story. You're basically telling the story of your people, and it's a really solid game. Like, it's I think if you like Frostpunk, this is definitely a game that you should be paying attention to. And the voice acting is wonderful. The writing, from what I've played, is pretty strong. The gameplay is compelling, but I wouldn't say it's like exceptional. It's just good. Like, there's nothing particularly like really groundbreaking about a lot of aspects of it, but it does what it needs to do, and it does it well. And yeah, overall I had a really good time with it, and it's a game that I could see myself playing quite a bit more of. It's I think like it does have like replayability, even though it is a story kind of based game, like being able to do that. And the other thing that's a little bit more interesting about it from a mechanical standpoint is it does have up to 8-player co-op, not a co-op, multiplayer. And that can kind of be co-op, or it can be like almost like competing against each other in a way. I've not had a chance to check it out as multiplayer to see how that works out 100%, but it's yeah, it's a decent little game.
Seeing some.
So I want to second the fact that it is, you know, very Frostpunk like, in the sense that, you know, I enjoyed playing Frostpunk and never want to play it again. And
Yeah,
Homesick
totally
triggered the exact thing of, I'm playing Desert Frostpunk. You know, fantastic game with very, very grey decisions and no clear way out of them. And just, yeah, it did grab me in those same sort of things. And I'm like, yeah, no, I am getting, you know, Frostpunk stress disorder from this. So, yeah. That's my input on that.
My feeling on Frostpunk was, this isn't making me feel things and you're trying to make me feel things, and I find playing this game to be oddly frustrating because you keep on trying to make me feel things. So I stopped playing it. Combine that with like the camera also made me motion sick. And looking at this, I'm looking at reviews and going, huh, all the reviews are saying it's worse Frostpunk. It's like, I don't know.
I don't think it's necessarily worse Frostpunk. I think it is very Frostpunk-like in a game that is not explicitly Frostpunk. So it suffers from that, you know...
It's close enough to be directly compared, but it's not as big a budget. And from a visual perspective, I don't think it's as polished either.
Like,
which
you
means
put together
that it's going to...
Yeah, the biggest thing that sort of caught me was you put together an expedition team and you send them away. They go from place to place, and you're faced with various moral decisions that impact that team and what you get from it. It's very much the same mechanic as the exploration in Frostpunk.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I recall, the actual core game in and of itself was designed more around actually getting out of the place you were in. You know, you weren't stuck in one location trying to survive just there.
Well, I think that we've kind of like hit a point with city builders where there's very few things that people haven't done already. And especially like when it's us talking about city builders, it's very easy for us to just be like, nah, it's just another derivative city builder. It's kind of like, when games like Singularity came out. I don't know if any of you played Singularity, but Singularity was a fun first-person shooter that I enjoyed when it came out. Was it a good game compared to the other games that came out at the time? Did it do anything interesting or different? No. Not at all. But it was a game that I played. And because I didn't play a ton of games back then, I look back on it fondly. But I remember like looking at reviews at the time and people going, yeah, it's a 7 out of 10, and kind of feeling miffed because I remember really enjoying it. And I think that, like, I think we might be at that point with city builders now, especially like, if you played games like Oxygen, or I guess the most recent Homeseek, or what was it, Patron, or Patron, or whatever that game was called, Settlement Survival. All of these games, like they all kind of are using so many of the same ideas. I think it's really difficult, and I don't envy anybody trying to make a city builder or a survival city builder in the current climate without doing something like kind of new and different with it, like from what I can tell Against the Storm is kind of doing, where they're kind of doing something new and different with it.
Yes.
So I think it's a difficult space to compete in right now.
I think it happens
100%.
in a lot of genres because, like, we all remember the zombie game trend, and then the Minecraft.
Yes, the War Z, a classic.
Yeah, and then of course we've got that delightful era of battle royale game.
That ended quick.
It's still ongoing.
Eh.
It's just a lot of. It's just so diluted now.
True.
But yeah, I think there's definitely a period where it's like, hey, if you are thinking of launching a new X genre game, perhaps not for a bit.
Yeah.
Let it cool off. And I think there's been a lot of hype and games released in the settlement survival at the moment. Like, I think that's another thing. Like, there is the definite settlement survival as opposed to, just a city building game. Like, City Skylines 2 will not have any necessary direct survival elements, whereas, like, Homeseek is very much around survival.
All I have to say...
And so...
Go on. Sorry.
Yep.
I thought...
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I hope that we can exit out of this settlement survival era of city builders and get back into the era of everybody's making just modern day business management city builders. Because right now, what do we have? We have Urbex City Builder, which was fine, and City Skylines. Can we get like 5 more of those, please?
Yeah,
like,
that's.
I just want some big budget city builders again. That's all I want.
That's it. City Skylines 2 releases soon, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's this year, yeah. So I kind of wonder if that'll be like spark the renaissance of more like you said, management SimCity style games. Or if it'll just be so big that it's like, yeah, there's no point competing with a game like this because this does everything you need.
The thing, though, is like, I had this exact conversation with somebody when City Skylines came out.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, finally, a game to prove to EA that you can make a single-player city-building game. And maybe other people will go make single-player city-building games. It's like, well, I guess we've had, like, Transport Fever. But that's kind of a different thing. That's a transport game. We've had some train games, like the various like choo-choo building games. But when was the last like big budget city builder? Just like normal ass city builder that wasn't like you're surviving against gonorrhea or whatever.
Hey. Don't knock gonorrhea.
I'm not knocking gonorrhea. I'm just tired of that being the biggest threat.
Not knocking gonorrhea. Sure. Okay, like I think we're allowed to knock gonorrhea.
I just want to make cars go extinct instead of people for once.
Yeah.
I totally get what you mean. And I think, you do have a really good point, is that it does seem to be... I am hopeful that we will see a resurgence in that genre eventually, but it is really difficult, I think, with City Skylines now being so well established, I think it would be very easy for a new player to come to the table and kind of fall into the same trap that we've been talking about of being compared against a standard setting game that has like really set the benchmark. And even if they do a decent job of it, they will probably be you know, I would say more harshly judged for not living up to the benchmark. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it's an interesting phenomenon either way, and I do think you're right. Is that, you know, there probably is a lot of games that I can think of that I've enjoyed and really enjoy, and in their own bubble are really great games. But then when you compare them to the best in class of those games, they do pale in comparison. And I think it is sometimes a little bit unfair that games do get directly compared to the very best in the genre and get perceived negatively, even though they are still good games and they do still have like redeeming qualities about them. They're not necessarily bad, they're just not as good as the best. So
yeah, for sure.
I played a little game a couple of years ago. By a couple of years ago, I mean 2018, called City State, which is like an isometric, looks like old SimCity style city builder, which was made by one dude, which ran in a Chrome window in HTML5, which was maybe one of the weirdest pieces of software I've ever downloaded off of Steam. It like literally launched a Chrome window.
Wow.
But he put out a sequel, because I said because it's a solo developer. He put out a sequel called City State 2, which has pretty similar reviews. It's like mid 70% positive on Steam. Which is like a 3D version of the original City State plus a bunch of other features and stuff. It had some neat ideas, but I remember the first City State just being really mechanically light. Like, it didn't have a lot going on. It was basically like you'd place down zoning and then you would fiddle with the election politics, basically, and like push different agendas, which would make the city develop in different ways, which was a neat little game, but it didn't at least the first one didn't quite hit everywhere, and I ran out of stuff to do pretty quick. Like the first one I played, which was the original City State, I ran out of content, I'd say maybe after about 10 hours, which was like, a stream and a half, like 2 streams worth of stuff for me, and like I'd seen everything at that point. Then he added a free expansion pack to it where you can go to Mars and then do the same progression again, which is kind of weird, but yeah, City State 2 has like some weird almost cyberpunk stuff in it and like flying cars and things, but like I never got around to playing it. Maybe I should go back and play that, see how that is, because like it had neat ideas. Yeah. Like, and
the problem is again, how much can you expect one developer to play?
No, exactly. And like, because I remember looking at his preview coverage and going like, yeah, no, this is like an expansion on the mechanics of the first one. It's like, okay, well, if it's the same mechanics as the first one, and if it's reviewing about the same and people are saying it's very similar to the first one, then like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, like, the first one was horribly explained and like took me a long time to figure it out. At the very least, like the City State games were city builder, but like I'm not even going to get into like my annoyances with City Skylines, like just being like a traffic painter and city manager game, because we only have a certain amount of time for this podcast. So unless there's anything else we should cover, should we go to news?
Absolutely.
All right.
I think news is good.
Let's go to news. We'll be right back after this. And we're back with episode 79 of the Halcyon Frequency podcast, and we're going to be talking about the news. So, normally I would ask who wants to run off with this one, but do either of you guys want to take this lovely self-news story about us as a team and a thing that we're doing?
Yeah. Halcyon Frequency Game Jam. We're up to how many signups now?
32.
It's getting 32 signups, and it's nearing the launch.
Yep.
I think it's the end of this month.
July 28th to 31st is the days that our game jam is running.
So, jump in on it, and full details are available on the itch.io page, which will be included in the description of this this podcast. Jump in the Discord. Don't be afraid to jump in, even if you don't know much. There's a ton of game development tools aimed at people who don't really know things like, RPG Maker and various other tools like that, which you're all welcome to use and sort of go ham. And if you also want to join a team and get some experience without relying on it all being on you, the Discord's the place to go.
Yeah, and the last game jam we did, we got, I think it was just under 10 submissions total, And it was a fun variety of things, and looking forward to messing around with and streaming and playing the games that people create in this jam. So as of the time of recording, it's just a couple days away. By the time this episode goes up, it should be about 4 days away. So if you have some time this coming weekend and you'd like to help entertain yourself with something over the weekend and want to make a game, like now's the time to do that. Theme will be announced when the actual game jam starts, but what I can say is just like our previous game jam, we have a very high focus on accessibility. So any kind of accessibility features or options you can add into your game, the better. Yeah, so looking forward to seeing what everybody creates.
Yeah.
Next thing on the news agenda we have here was started off as a tweet, which is, if you're unfamiliar, Twitter. It's this outdated microblogging service that had some relevancy in the mid-late 2000s and kind of died out in the early teens. But this was...
I just want to quickly say, if you're unfamiliar with Twitter, I envy you your blessed life.
Anyway, so this tweet came out from somebody named Michael, where they got an email from this indie developer, Ubisoft, I think is how you say that. Anyway, they have a storefront where you can buy their video games, their few pittance offerings. Anyway, long story short, apparently if your account is inactive for too long, they delete your account, including the games on it. They send you a 30-day warning email, and Ubisoft then clarified in a response to this Twitter on the Ubisoft support account, where they said, and I will read this quote, "Hey there, we just wanted to chime in that you can avoid the account closure by logging into your account within 30 days since the reviving email is pictured by selecting the cancel account closure link contained in this email, and we certainly do not want you to lose access to your games or account. So if you have any difficulties logging in, please create a support case with us at ubisoft.com/help." So essentially, if you don't log in for X amount of time, they will send you an email, and if you miss the email, then you lose everything you purchased.
See, I have thoughts on this, and trying to avoid it. This is fucked.
Yes,
you know, to put it bluntly, it's fucked because of one simple thing. You know, if you have paid for access to those games, to have that then deleted is an absolute travesty. I can absolutely understand being like, hey, you made an account, you've only played free-to-play games, you have not spent any money on the account, we are deleting that. We're going to shelve that one, right? But there is no problem with them saying, hey, look, we've got an excess amount of accounts that are sitting unused, right? Do you know what you do? You put that in a database, and you put that database into like deep storage that's slower to get to, and if someone wants to go and like log in and stuff, maybe they'll get an email saying, hey, it'll take an hour to set your account back up. You get that, you get the games again. There's no issue there. If storage is their issue, and it really shouldn't be. Like, I would love to see their reasoning behind doing this beyond, oh, we want to make sure that our monthly active users stay high.
Yeah. So there is something else that's like worth noting about this. Is there's been connections connected to this stating that the part of the reason for Ubisoft deleting it is part of GDPR compliance. But I don't know.
I doubt that.
That's what this is what I'm seeing through Twitter. So, I mean, it's here. I'll screenshot this and just share it.
Yeah, that's where putting
here.
it into deep storage can help. You can remove basically most identifying stuff and just store the account on a very, email login and keys. And once that's done, it can be reconnected later on. Like that's how I would approach it, and that's how I do it, because quite simply, people have bought those things. They deserve those things. To close inactive accounts if they deem the data no longer necessary for collection. That's my exact point. Purchase and ownership of these products is necessary for collection, right? The claim that they don't close accounts that are inactive for less than 4 years likely tells me they collected too much data in the past, and the data they have is not GDPR compliant, so they're like, what the fuck do? We delete that.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing just kind of makes me mad. The only Ubisoft game that I play is Trackmania, and I haven't even been playing that much recently. So I'm not at risk of losing my account, but boy, all of this just blech.
Yeah,
icky.
It is. It's that reminder that even your Steam account is technically, like, you own no game on the Steam account.
That's not totally true, because there are some games that are totally DRM free on Steam that once you download it, it's just on your hard drive, and if you delete and uninstall Steam, the game will still launch. Dwarf Fortress is an example of this. I could go through and find other ones, but it is up to the developers if they want to use Steam DRM, and if they don't use Steam DRM, you can actually launch the game while Steam is not running. So it does depend on the game, but you still need to have it installed. You could obviously you could still lose the ability to download it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Is like, at any point, Steam could be like, "No, we don't have that game on our servers anymore." Boom, you no longer have.
I'm pretty sure RimWorld is another example of that. Just to try and name a bigger one, Caves of Cut is like that. Songs of Six is like that. I'm just looking through my library. Conquest of Elysium is like that. Brigador is like that. Project Zomboid, I'm pretty sure, is also doesn't use Steam DRM. But there's a billion examples of games that do, right? So
yeah.
I was just trying. Terraria also doesn't use Steam DRM. Trying to think of other big examples of that, but yeah, Steam's better than that, but not by a lot.
Yeah, they're better than that while Gabe's still in charge and while their initial vision is still being held, but that's easily changeable.
Oh God, I dread the day that we lose Gabe and Steam gets sold.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that day isn't today. Yeah. However, it is time for me to end this podcast. And since I'm on the podcast, I'm actually going to go over to one of my websites. Now, this is a website called Podkite, which I get some analytics from, because I'm curious as to where this podcast is currently ranking. I do have to log in, though, and it is currently giving me a Cloudflare pop-up. But I can say that we are currently the 141st most popular podcast in India under video games and leisure. So,
nice,
cool. Let's.
Yeah, it's pretty high up there.
We were ranked in Poland up until a couple weeks ago. So people in Poland, start listening again. Jeez, what are you doing?
Yeah. Get back into it.
Get back on it.
We fell off in Poland, man.
Yeah, so we're 187th in Poland. I'm actually seeing the full listings now. We're 187th in Poland now. We were much higher than that. But currently, we're just ranked in India. So, we need to get those numbers back up. But
they're rookie numbers. Got to pump them up.
Well, rookie numbers are not as good as Wookiee numbers. We need more. But it is time to end this podcast because I'm making Chewbacca sounds. So I got to say, let's start at the top. Arch, who are you and where can people find you on the internet?
I'm Arch Play Stuff, and I can be found at all good retailers under Arch Play Stuff.
And Drongo.
I'm Bloody Drongo. You can find me on Twitch as Bloody Drongo. You can find me on Twitter, if you want to subject yourself to that, as @TheBloodyDrongo. And on all other platforms, I am bloody.drongo.
You can find me, Blind IRL, at just about anywhere as Blind IRL. And if you want to follow me on a social media platform to get pictures of my garden when I spam them out into the ether, I recommend doing that on Mastodon at blindirl@mas.to. You can just find me on your favorite provider of the Fediverse from there. I'm also on Blue Sky now, but nobody's on Blue Sky, so that doesn't matter. Anyway, this has been the Halcyon Frequency Podcast. If you want to get more episodes of this podcast, you can do that at halcyonfrequency.com. The intro and outro music that you're hearing at this point probably was provided by Peter Pohl and Paul Mile. And if you would like to discuss this episode of the show or get in on that game jam or anything, we have a community Discord, which can also be found via our website, halcyonfrequency.com. And if you can't find episodes of this podcast for some reason, please tell me, and I will make it reappear in the location that you're used to finding them. And if you really like this podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. I know it's difficult to do, but iTunes reviews actually do help boost this podcast, and it's been a very long time since we got our last review. Trying to think, I'm probably forgetting something. Oh yeah, new episodes go up every Sunday, and until next week, don't touch that dial. This is Halcyon Frequency, signing off.